Hey y'all, Pastor Drew here, and I am tuning in with another daily reflection in this season of Lent. Every Sunday through Thursday, I'm recording a short video reflecting on the theme, the Greatest Commandment, to love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. This is the theme that is guiding our congregation, Christ Lutheran Church, where I serve as the pastor during this season of Lent. And today, I wanted to focus on the first part of that greatest commandment, the first commandment that is greatest, to love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And I want to use the work of someone named Richard Nelson that I've used for a good while that talks about spiritual types. And so I actually have in my hands a spiritual types inventory, which is to say that just how we have different styles of learning that we best connect with, things like visual media or kinesthetic activity. The same thing is true about our spiritual lives. And the framework of this greatest commandment, to love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, lends itself to understanding spirituality as four spiritual types. And now many of us fall sort of in between these or have multiple of these. And I'd love to share more about the inventory with you. I'm going to try and remember to link to it in this video as well. But there's just a handful of questions that will lead you through it. But the idea is that we connect with God in different ways, depending on who we are and sometimes depending on what point at life we're in. But all of these practices help us, but there are certain spiritual practices, depending on our spiritual type, that will resonate with us more deeply, that will help us connect even more fully with God. And so I'm going to share a little bit about the heart, soul, mind, and strength spiritual types. Again, this is stuff that I'm pulling from Richard Nelson. Richard L. Nelson. And so Jesus talks about loving God with your heart, and what Richard talks about as your heart type is that heart spiritual type people are people who are moved by action, by doing things, and by justice concerns, often relying on passion for spiritual energy. And some spiritual practices that tend to help people who are heart people connect really great are going on pilgrimage, the Ignatian Examen, which is praying over your daily life, and then volunteering and advocacy. I'm going to stitch in some footage of we working with people and serving students at the University of Texas last night, and my heart was full. I tend to be a heart spiritual type person. My passion does drive this energy and these relationships that I make with people, and being able to volunteer and engage with people. There's nothing that gets me sort of out beyond myself quicker and connecting with God and neighbor and following the greatest commandment more quickly than really getting out and volunteering and being around people. And then the next type is soul spiritual types. And soul spiritual types are people who value relationship, oneness, and mystical union. So my relationship stuff, again, you can already see how I'm heart and soul in some of these ways. Often felt experience and connection with others is where spiritual energy is found if you're a soul type person. And soul type people tend to find centering prayer or walking a labyrinth, contemplation, prayer stations or stations of the cross to be extra meaningful. The next type is mind. That's love God with all your mind. And so mind spiritual types are people who connect using their intellect and words, verbal or written. Often language and beautiful language and sound belief are where spiritual energy comes from. And this is good news for us Lutherans. Liturgical worship is very mind-based. If you connect in mind, this is why we love bulletins so much, the words, but also things like dwelling in the word, Lectio Divina, journaling, meditating on hymn or song lyrics or poetry, reading scripture. These are practices that are really great if you connect with your spirituality via your mind most often, or ways just to engage our mind and how we love God. And then loving God with all our strength. Strength spiritual types are people who get the most meaning out of doing something with their bodies. This type relies upon activity or bodily movement for spiritual energy. So getting out and serving can be really great for a strength spiritual type too, right? Getting up and doing something, but also things like yoga, Again, walking a labyrinth where you're moving while you're praying, being out in nature, having something tactile like prayer beads or a finger labyrinth, but getting up and moving. People who say they just connect with God and pray while they run tend to be strength, spiritual type people. So when we love God with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength, it means engaging all of these spiritual practices and how we grow closer to love God. But I invite you today and in the days that follow to think about what your spiritual type might be and to engage in a spiritual practice that really helps you connect with what you feel is your strongest spiritual type. And then maybe try one that's something that you feel like is really foreign to you. Like if silence and contemplation is hard for you, if you don't seem like that soul person experiencing mystical oneness, maybe try some silence. If strength is not your thing, right? Yoga's never been your thing. Try praying while you're on the move and doing something active with your body. Right. So I encourage you to try something both that seems to resonate closest with you, and then also something that seems at the farthest edge, because again, the call of the greatest commandment is to love God with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength. But I hope maybe talking about these spiritual types opens that commandment up to you in a new way today. I'll be back with you tomorrow. Grace and peace.